This is unfortunately a very divisive topic. There's a good chance that you already have strong beliefs in favor of or against capitalism. And some recent polls show that more people are shifting towards socialism. Now, most all of us have different life experiences that really push us one way or the other, but in reality, there are pros and cons to each system. And I'm about to shed some light on both. Now, for you to get the most use out of my research today, please try to keep an open mind. It's really not easy to do, but overall this approach will help you get a better understanding of capitalism versus socialism. And if you like my rational approach, my attempted objectivity, I'd really appreciate it if you just tap that like button down below as well as subscribe. And if you want to jump straight to the three flaws, I've left them with the timestamps on your screen, and I'll also drop a quick jump down in the description below. Now, starting out, I think it's really important to kind of take the first principles approach and ask the fundamental question, what is capitalism? Or more so, free market capitalism. Now, instead of giving you some boring textbook definition, I'll do one better. Let's go ahead and use the company Apple to see the core of free market capitalism. And really, this applies to any business, no matter how small or large. The only way Apple has grown and continues to grow and survive is by providing value to others. No one has to buy its products and services. Governments are not forcing you or millions of Americans around the world to buy iPhones. People who buy iPhones ultimately choose to do so. They decide they want smartphones and prefer Apple or iPhones over the alternatives. And this same concept really applies to many products and services you buy. With free market capitalism, you can get whatever you want if you provide enough of what other people want in return. And of course, money is almost always involved in a transaction, but it's just a measuring stick of value that we use to make trading easier. So, free market capitalism aligns with having more freedom, although really that's upfront freedom. If this system goes without any centralized control, it can actually lead to less freedom for many people. This brings me to my first big flaw of capitalism. True free market capitalism leads to monopolies. Without antitrust laws, big companies would squash their competition. Individual companies would dominate markets, even more so than today. This would lead to uncompetitive pricing, and that'd be great for individual company profitability, but it wouldn't be good for you or me. On a fundamental level, competition is great for consumers and pushing human innovation further. Companies are fighting for our business. They do so by trying to create better products at lower costs than their competitors. But with completely free markets, companies would gain bigger economies of scale and squash any healthy competition. Now, the second flaw is a tragedy of the commons. When we have limited shared resources, like fish in the sea, who's to stop the overfishing? If that happens, everyone will lose the next year with lower catches overall. And this can go to extremes by completely wiping out a resource. At the core of tragedy of the commons is prisoner's dilemma. If companies would work together to limit their use of natural resources, that would lead to a more sustainable outcome for all, a better outcome. Although out of self-interest and with lack of trust, we know that this doesn't usually happen. So to prevent tragedy of the commons, some centralized control is useful. It helps prevent unsustainable uses of resources. Now, for my third big point or flaw of capitalism, increasing concentration of wealth. Unlike the past industrial revolution, new technology is replacing jobs at a faster rate than we can create and fill them. I've done a really deep dive on this topic over the last about 10 years, and I found some pretty compelling evidence to support that claim. I've shared my research on this topic in one of my favorite articles, which I titled Universal Basic Income. I'll drop a link to it down in the description below. I'm not going into detail here on that, so feel free to check that out. Now, there always has been a divide between the wealthy and the less wealthy, but it's really gotten worse over the last few decades. The Occupy Wall Street movement does have some merit behind it. As technology continues to improve at an exponential rate, the divide has the ability to get worse without intervention. We're entering a new economic paradigm, and already the government has drastically increased the welfare state. The US has created, I think, just over 80 means-tested welfare programs. But unfortunately, there's a lot of bureaucracy and inefficiency with those programs. And that's a usual case when it comes to the government. There's an old joke. What's the closest thing you can get to everlasting life? A government program. Overall, capitalism has been one of the most productive systems for pushing humanity really forward. Of course, it has flaws, some of the big ones I've pointed out, but I wouldn't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. One of the biggest issues going forward is increasing wealth concentration. This leads to unequal opportunity for hundreds of millions of people starting out in the world. Although to solve this issue, I want to be clear that I'm a huge fan of early life opportunities. And please do not confuse equal opportunity with equal outcome. One of my favorite sayings that I've run into over the last few years is, it's not that I could and others could not, it's that I did and others did not. I've really thought a lot about this thought-provoking statement, and if you know its source, please let me know. I've tried to track it down. Just let me know down in the comments. Overall, I really think it's an empowering saying. The one caveat, though, I have to it is that not everyone will start out with similar educational opportunities. And of course, this compounds throughout life. I think that's why there needs to be a balance some balance between capitalism and socialism. And with our political theater, the pendulum will continue swinging back and forth. Now, feel free to drop any comments or questions down below. Also, I'd really appreciate it if you just tap that like button as well as subscribe. Thank you.